right. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mustapad Paramahansa Padavadikacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavadikacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. I think we're on text 38. Yeah, must be. Page 291.
Yes, Prabhu. We are on text 38.
Oh, no. Is that Tapas? Is that you, Tapas?
Yes, Prabhu.
You see, we have a lag because he's in India, 10,000 miles away, and he's monitoring the class. How is it possible?
I have a good internet now.
Okay. Anyway, we'll talk later. Hare Krishna. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All right, give me 1 second here. On this 19th day of September 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, translation, Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti-yoga Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 6 entitled Dhyana-yoga, text number 38, page 291. Okay. But, Bob, do you know how to turn this fan on? In there, yeah. Let's just get that. Yeah, you have a different book. Chapter 6, text 38, you'll find it in the margin at the top. You see in the middle of, you get a gutter. Yeah, 638, I'm sorry. I can tell because of the small margins. Okay. We should... No, it's 638. You're on page. You got it right there. You have it right. 638. Okay. All right. Kachin nobhaya vibrashtas chinnabhram ivanashiti apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmana pati. Okay. Kachinno bhaya vibrashtas chinnabhram ivanashyati apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmanakpati. Kachinno bhaya vibrashtas chinnabhram ivanashyati apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmanakpati. Kachinno bhaya vibrashtas chinnabhram ivanashyati apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmanakpati. Prabhu? Haribol? Kachinno vaya vibrashtas chinnabhram ivanashyati apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmanakpati. Someone else? Go ahead. Kachinno bhaya vibrashtas chinnabhram ivanashyati apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmanakpati. Anyone else? I thought I heard another chanter in here. Anyone online?
Kachinno bhaya vibrashtas
Kachinno bhaya vibrashtas
chinnabhram ivanashyati
chinnabhram ivanashyati
apratishto mahabaho
apratishto mahabaho
vimudho brahmanapati.
vimudho brahmanakpati. Okay. Kachit, whether, na, not, ubhaya, both, vimbrashtaha, deviated from, chinna, torn, abhram, cloud, eva, like, nashyati, perishes, apratishtaha, without any position, mahabaho, almighty on Krishna, vimudaha, bewildered, brahmanaha, of transcendence, pati, on the path. Arjuna continued, Almighty on Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? Purport. There are two ways to progress. Those who are materialists have no interest in transcendence. Therefore, they are more interested in material advancement by economic development or in promotion to the higher planets by appropriate work. When one takes to the path of transcendence, one has to cease all material activities and sacrifice all forms of so-called material happiness. If the aspiring transcendentalist fails, then he apparently loses both ways. In other words, he can enjoy neither material happiness nor spiritual success. He has no position. he is like a ribbon cloud. A cloud in the sky sometimes deviates from a small cloud and joins a big one. But if it cannot join a big one, then it is blown away by the wind and becomes a non-entity in the vast sky. The Brahmanapati is the path of transcendental realization through knowing oneself to be spiritual in essence, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, who is manifested as Brahman, Paramātmā, and Bhagavan. Lord Sri Krishna is the fullest manifestation of the Supreme Absolute Truth, and therefore one who is surrendered to the Supreme Person is a successful transcendentalist. To reach this goal of life through Brahman and Paramātmā realization takes many, many births. Bahūnāṁ, janmanām, ante. Therefore, the supermost path of transcendental realization is bhakti-yoga, or Krishna consciousness, the direct method. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilatam mena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So Arjuna is continuing to express his doubts about his ability to practice this Ashtanga Yoga system, which Krishna has outlined in previous verses. Indeed, it's the goal is very attractive. And I always like to refer back to these verses, text 20 to 23, where Krishna describes the state of samadhi, the success of the aspiring Ashtanga yogi. In that stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self, that's the super self in the heart, by the pure mind, and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. So, if you read that as a state, which Krishna is speaking about it, and it's real, then one would say, "Well, where do I sign up? Boundless transcendental happiness? I'll go for that." And diminishing of misery down to nil, you're never shaken, and what more do you want, right? So it sounds, it's a real goal, and it's possible to achieve. But the problem is that the method for achieving it is very, very difficult, especially in this age. We learn about the passage of these 4 different ages. There's a cycle called the Yuga cycle, and it begins with Satya Yuga. Satya Yuga, as it sounds, as it described, the age of truth, and practically everyone was Brahminical. There was none of this craziness going on, and it was people understood that they're spirit, and they understood that it's the goal of life is to get out of it. And so there was the process of this yoga was very prominent at that time. People lived for an extraordinarily long time. We find it hard to believe, now if you live to 100, it's like, you make the news, right? I mean, but in those days, people lived for 100,000 years. Why not? We don't really, it's hard to conceive in the present day, but that was what we get from the Shastra. And that's where Valmiki was, meditating for 60,000 years, chanting Ram, 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 Ram. He realized Ram. He wrote the Ramayana, great realized soul, and many others. And then gradually, due to the force of time, things became a little more degraded. And in the Treta Yuga, I learned this fairly recently, because Treta means 3 and Dwapara means 2. And I said, well, that seems to be backward, because the second Yuga is named 3, and the third Yuga is named Dwapara Yuga. But what it refers to is the 4 different principles of religion that gradually diminish. And what are the principles of religion? Truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, and austerity. And so in Satya Yuga, you had 4 of those were very prominent. Everyone lived according to those principles, you can imagine. Truthfulness, It's said that truthfulness is the last leg, and it's being destroyed gradually in Kali Yuga. You can see, like, the politicians know all we need to do is become skilled liars, and we can, get a huge following. Truthfulness is practically destroyed, but there, everyone's following. So, in the third yuga, or in the Treta Yuga, only 3 of those were present, more prominently. I forget which one, how they decreased, but the last one is truthfulness, and that's me. So that and the Dwapara Yuga, 2 of them were present, and the Kali Yuga, practically none of them are present. They're all being diminished. So he's speaking, he's receiving this knowledge on the cusp of the Kali Yuga, at the end of the Dwapara Yuga. So Arjuna is representing us. Now, of course, he's a great soul, he's an intimate servant of Krishna, so he's taking this role of someone who's being moved by his emotions rather than his intellect. His emotions are, oh, here's my grandfather. Bhishma Dev wasn't his real grandfather, he was famously a brahmachari. But he acted like that because when the Pandu, the father of the Pandavas, died untimely, they were just small boys. And so there were 2 wives, Kunti and Madri. And traditionally, the wives enter into the fire of immolation for the. So, but who was going to take care of these children? So it was decided, Madri would do that, and Kunti would then take care. So she's left with these poor children, and the problem is they're the real heirs. Pandu was the king; they're the actual heirs to the throne. But there was this confusion because Dhritarashtra, his older brother, would normally be the heir to the throne, but he was blind. So he wasn't really eligible. But when Pandu died, then he took over the kingdom temporarily, holding it for the Pandavas again. But then Dhritarashtra had all these sons, led by Duryodhana. So we're the rightful heirs because our father is the eldest. So that's why the battle came. So these Duryodhana and company, they decided, well, why don't we just annihilate and assassinate the Pandavas? So there were all these efforts to kill them, and Bhishma came in and helped to protect them when they were children, like that. So he was beloved. He's on the other side. And there's this teacher. He sees Dronacharya, who trained him in martial arts. He doesn't. Why should he want to kill him? And then there's all of these. Even the Kurus themselves are part of the same clan. He had brothers-in-law and all kinds of relations on the other side. This is the first chapter. So Arjuna is reacting to this. This is the last thing I want to do, is to fight them and kill them. What will be the kingdom? I'll have this kingdom, but it'll be soaked with the blood of the people I love. Well, how am I going to enjoy the kingdom? Better I just go off to the forest, This was his dilemma, Arjuna's dilemma. So this is the same Arjuna, and Krishna is now speaking about this, on the battlefield, in no man's land, everyone's ready to fight. And it's the last place where you're going to have a yoga class, But that's what he's talking about, asana and pranayama and going alone to the forest and, like that. So Arjuna first of all, he said, Chanchalam himana Krishna. The mind is so powerful and obstinate, it's like trying to control the wind. I don't think I can do it. He has these doubts. And then Krishna encourages him, yes, it's difficult, but you could do it with practice. So now Arjuna is saying, okay, well, what if I fail? Then I'll be like a riven cloud. I'll give up my position as a Kshatriya. I'll go off to the forest. I'll meditate, but the mind will be going here and there. I just don't, And so now I failed as a yogi, and I quit as a Kshatriya. I'll have no place. It'll be like a riven cloud. I'll have no place, That's what his present thing. Apatishto vimudho brahmana. So he's saying that even if I try it, I don't think I can do it, but even if I try it, I likely will fail. Then what's the use? So Krishna will then encourage him. Well, just like I said back in the 2nd chapter, he could have preceded his comments by that. There's no loss or diminution. Even if you don't succeed, in your next life you'll be born in a family of Brahmins or yogis, and you'll be able to continue, like that. But Arjuna's not very excited about that. And finally, at the end, as we're coming up on the end of the chapter, Krishna, it's almost like the punchline, it says, don't worry about it. You don't have to worry about practicing the Ashtanga Yoga because you're already my intimate friend. And the greatest yogi is one who's always thinking of me with faith and worshiping like that. And then he goes on in the 7th chapter. And it's interesting, in the 7th chapter, there's no talk of yoga. In the 8th chapter, he gets back into it a little bit. But it's all about how you can train the mind to think of me, to think of, I'm the supreme transcendence. So it's as good as samadhi, by just understanding my presence in the world through my energies. You know, he says, whenever you drink water, understand that I am the taste of that water. I created your tongue, I created the water, in other words, it's all coming from me. And if we can actually see like that, then we'll be in samadhi. We'll be always thinking of God, always thinking of Krishna. But practically speaking, it only works when you make the conscious effort to use as much of Krishna's energy in Krishna's service. Otherwise, that enjoying mentality comes up and you're trying to exploit it for your own, and you forget all about Krishna. That's the whole effort of bhakti-yoga, and that will be explained later. So this is Arjuna is expressing his doubts, and Krishna will ultimately assuage them, and you can just almost hear Arjuna's sigh of relief at the end of the chapter. He says, well, I'm always thinking of you. You're my best friend, Whew, that's okay. No, let's go on, and then he'll go on with the Bhagavad Gita. Oh, any questions on this famous verse about the riven cloud? Yes, Prabhu.
So you should mention when this doubt of Arjuna to keep fighting in the army in the front.
Yeah.
There was his teachers, his masters. But what would you answer to any people on the street without much philosophy? I mean, if you say, I cannot kill my teacher, my neighbor, my uncle, because of moral or non-violence or like that.
Yeah, the point is that's a special case. It's not like that. It's not like spoken for the average person. But the point is that that we have a duty to perform, and the question is, or let's say a dharma, and this is the meaning of human life. It's a precious thing, and it's not meant to be wasted in just trying to enjoy our senses and build up some position in this world, because it's all blown away. It's taken away. There's no point in it. The whole foundation of the philosophy and the seriousness of it arises in the beginning, in the second chapter. That this life that we're in is just temporary. It's not our real life. We're all in a masquerade ball, and we're really good at we've been completely convinced with our masks and our costumes that this is what we are. But we're not. We're not the body. And so there's life after death. And you're creating your destiny now. So you need to learn about what the best life is in your next, in this life and the next life especially. And not simply be concerned with the immediate concerns of your, pleasing the senses or your material identity centered around this body. That's the first lesson. If you're not into that, then that's why Prabhupada would always preach on that to a new audience. He would almost always deal with that, because that's the essential first step, is to suddenly realize, that I'm something other than just this identity that I've had all this time. And when you start with there, then you go, well, what is the duty? What is the actual dharma of the soul? What is the right thing to do? Not only for our own benefit, but for the benefit of everyone else. And that's leading this life of purity and progressively realizing, through the help of the process of chanting and other processes that we do, our relationship with Krishna. And then our social position then becomes clear, because we all have some position that we have to fulfill, It's not that you immediately give up everything, but add the process of Krishna consciousness so that you're progressively leading a life in which Krishna is more and more in the center. Because the whole idea is that it's possible. It's possible. With this process is not possible. No one's telling you, okay, give everything up and go off to the Himalayas and meditate. No, stay in where you are and meditate in this way, and learn to give up those things which are gross obstacles to devotional service. Yes, there's some austerity involved, but with the help of other devotees and with the books of understanding, that it is possible to become a yogi even in this world. by centering on the process of chanting. And then your relationships then become clear what to do. Some have to be cut off because they're too detrimental, but others can be integrated into Krishna consciousness. Family life, can be there, So it's a question of the appropriateness. For Arjuna, who's a warrior, the whole thing was, shall I fight or not shall I fight? And that's what that Krishna wanted to do, not for his own benefit, but for the benefit of the whole world, to reinstate Dharma in the world in the person of Yudhishthira. So he had a great responsibility. All right, let's go on. Text 39. Etanme sankshayam Krishna Chaitummarhasya sheshataha Tvadanyak sankshaya syasya Chaitanya yupapadyate. This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Purport. Krishna is the perfect knower of past, present, and future. In the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord said that all living entities existed individually in the past, they exist now in the present, and they continue to retain individual identity in the future, even after liberation from the material entanglement. So he has already cleared up the question of the future of the individual living entity. Now, Arjuna wants to know of the future of the unsuccessful transcendentalist. No one is equal to or above Krishna, and certainly the so-called great sages and philosophers who are at the mercy of the material nature cannot equal him. Therefore, the verdict of Krishna is the final and complete answer to all doubts, because he knows past, present, and future perfectly. But no one knows him. Krishna and Krishna-conscious devotees alone can know what is what. So this is an essential kind of part of the Bhagavad Gita. You really want to get benefit from it, then you have to have faith that Krishna is going to tell us the truth. What is wholly and solely beneficial for us. There's no exploitation. Krishna already has everything. So he can clear up our doubts. The problem of material life, when people come in touch with Krishna consciousness, and it's full of doubts because there's so many things that are just outside of our experience. As Krishna himself says, even the soul is amazing for those who are completely in material life. It seems either speculative or irrelevant. I have so many things I have to do, in order to progress on my chosen path, to pay the rent, in this relationship, that relationship, a million different things. I just don't have time to worry about this stuff, But that's the most important thing. That's who you really are. And when people find themselves, there's, as you probably know, maybe because of the pandemic, maybe because of the politics, maybe because of the climate, whatever it is, there's a whole lot of more anxiety and depression and people unable to work. It's horrific going on, And because this is the nature of when a society is completely focused on material things, materialistic things, and no one really knows how to solve their problems. The problems just build up, and there's one thing after another, and even if I solve it, then still, what are my children going to get? The climate is, it's just overwhelming. But if you're Krishna consciousness and you're focused on this process of developing your understanding of Krishna, your love for Krishna, then you can actually deal with it. Yes, it could be a crisis. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? The glaciers are melting 10 feet, they say. You've heard of that, Antarctica. Every day there's a new disaster that is coming. So how to deal with that? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. You got to transcend it. You got to transcend this relative world. Find your safety in Krishna and your security. So that's Krishna will now encourage Arjuna, and he will explain that there's no loss. We shouldn't think that if we only do 50% or maybe get to 75% in this lifetime, what's going to happen? It's going to be 2100 And there won't be a San Diego. It's going to be on the water, and what's the point? Yeah, but there's so many other planets you can come to. Krishna isn't quote of all of them. He promises that you'll be able to continue in your next life. So somehow or other it'll happen. So that this is a big thing, is the doubts. He said, my doubt, only you can solve it. So we should follow Arjun's lead and have faith in Krishna's words. Okay, text 40. Shri Bhagavano Vacha Partha Naiveha Namutra Vinasas Tasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Kaschid Durgatim Tatatgachati. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pita, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. Purport. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.17, Sri Narada Muni instructs Vyasadeva as follows. Tyakva sadharmam charanam bhujang hare bhajan hapakpo tapate tato hyadi yatra kvava bhandramabhura mushikim ko varta apto abhajatam swadharmataha. If someone gives up all material prospects and takes complete shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no loss or degradation in any way. On the other hand, a non-devotee may fully engage in his occupational duties and yet not gain anything. For material prospects, there are many activities, both scriptural and customary. A transcendentalist is supposed to give up all material activities for the sake of spiritual advancement in life. Krishna consciousness. One may argue that by Krishna consciousness one may attain the highest perfection if it is completed, but if one does not attain such a perfectional stage, then he loses both materially and spiritually. It is enjoined in the scriptures that one has to suffer the reaction for not executing prescribed duties. Therefore, one who fails to discharge transcendental activities properly becomes subjected to these reactions. The Bhagavatam assures the unsuccessful transcendentalist that there need be no worries. Even though he may be subjected to the reaction for not perfectly executing prescribed duties, he is still not a loser, because auspicious Krishna consciousness is never forgotten, and one so engaged will continue to be so even if he is lowborn in the next life. On the other hand, one who simply follows strictly the prescribed duties need not necessarily attain auspicious results if he is lacking in Krishna consciousness. The purport may be understood as follows. Humanity may be divided into two sections, namely the regulated and the non-regulated. Those who are engaged simply in bestial sense gratifications without knowledge of their next life or spiritual salvation belong to the non-regulated section. And those who follow the principles of prescribed duties in the scriptures are classified amongst the regulated section. The non-regulated section, both civilized and non-civilized, educated and non-educated, strong and weak, are full of animal propensities. Their activities are never auspicious, because while enjoying the animal propensities of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, they perpetually remain in material existence, which is always miserable. On the other hand, those who are regulated by scriptural injunctions, and who thus rise gradually to Krishna consciousness, certainly progress in life. Those who are following the path of auspiciousness can be divided into three sections, namely, 1. The followers of scriptural rules and regulations who are enjoying material prosperity, 2. Those who are trying to find ultimate liberation from material existence, and 3. Those who are devotees in Krishna consciousness. Those who are following the rules and regulations of the scriptures for material happiness may be further divided into two classes, those who are fruitive workers and those who desire no fruit for sense gratification. Those who are after fruitive results for sense gratification may be elevated to a higher standard of life, even to the higher planets, but still, because they are not free from material existence, they are not following the truly auspicious path. The only auspicious activities are those which lead one to liberation. Any activity which is not aimed at ultimate self-realization or liberation from the material bodily concept of life is not at all auspicious. Activity in Krishna consciousness is the only auspicious activity, and anyone who voluntarily accepts all bodily discomforts for the sake of making progress on the path of Krishna consciousness can be called a perfect transcendentalist under severe austerity. And because the Eightfold Yoga system is directed toward the ultimate realization of Krishna consciousness, such practice is also auspicious, and no one who is trying his best in this matter need fear degradation. So, this verse Prabhupada quotes here. This is a verse from the first canto, spoken by Narada Muni, as he mentions there. Narada Muni had written all of the Vedic literature except the Srimad Bhagavatam. He'd written the 4 Vedas, the Rig, Sama, Yajna, Artha Veda. He'd written the Upanishads. He'd written the other Puranas. He'd written the Mahabharata, which contains this Bhagavad Gita. And yet, after writing all of that literature, he was still not quite satisfied in his mind, and he didn't know quite why. So Narada Muni comes, and he basically says, because you hardly glorified the Supreme Lord Krishna and his pure devotion and his devotees. In the course of that, it's not that he didn't glorify at all. After all, Bhagavad Gita is here, and Krishna is here. So there is a Bhagavad Gita. And in Padma Puran, there's so much, talk about, but not wholly and solely. There are so many other things, and this whole section of the Vedas called the Karma Kanda section, which speaks about these different rituals and different homas and sacrifices you can perform in order to get a better birth on this plane, or even go to the heavenly planets. In other words, you can really improve your material, Haribol Shukri, your material position by following the Vedas, following this part of the Vedas. But as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, you don't ultimately get anywhere that way. You may rise up to the heavenly planets. But then, what did he say? Tetam bhukva swarga logam vishalam. We're on page 293. If you make it to the heavenly planets, and that's not a sure thing, but if you do all the rituals right and you go up, then you can enjoy godly delights. Indra's up there, Nandanakana, you live a long time, you have a youthful body, there's, apsaras and fairies dancing and everything. So, that's there. But after a certain amount of time, you're like spending your punya. You've accumulated a lot of pious credits from all of your sacrifices, like that. So you're a pious person, you're not a demon. But the ultimate motive of all of it is to enjoy like anything. But you're not so foolish as to try to enjoy on this plane, which is like, always fraught with so much misery. But up there, it's just enjoyment, material enjoyment. But you're spending that punya, and at a certain time, chine punye, when it's all gone, martya lokam vishanti. You return again to this world of birth and death. So you didn't really make any progress going back to Godhead. You just had a deviation. And then you fall down and you're back in this world, and you have to deal with all that. And you may not, by that time, you may be in a different family, you don't know anything about the rituals, and you just lead a more animalistic life, and you'll lose the human form of life. So Krishna condemns that. He condemns this worship of the demigods just to go to the higher planets. So now, after all of that, writing all that, and Vyasadeva is troubled, he speaks this verse. And what this means, and so what he's saying here, he's encouraging those to practice bhajan of Krishna. Because your swadharma, you may be a very paka Brahman and do just your duties as a Kshatriya or Vaishya. But a pakvo, okay, you're giving that up because you want to worship the Supreme Lord, the lotus feet of Lord Hari. But you don't complete the course. This is not unlikely. We've had experience now over 50 years in the Hare Krishna movement. People come and a lot of people go. For one reason or another, they're not able to follow the process. But they didn't lose anything. That's what he's saying here. Your credits with Krishna are there, and they're going to bring you back in the next lifetime where you'll be able to pick up. You'll come in touch with the devotees. You'll have some, even he's probably to say the devotees now who are coming had some credit in previous life. That's why out of thousands and millions of people who got mantra cards or books or, then a relative small percentage will actually say, yeah, this is just what I've been looking for. Let me go check out the temple. Some devotees get, like our friend Vijay here. He got the Bhagavad Gita, he couldn't put it down. This is what he's looking for. Read it all in 2 nights, and was just trying to find someone where he could chant Hare Krishna, and there he found him in Miami, and and the rest is history. So that's what he said. Yatra vabodana buddha mushikim. But if someone simply follows closely his duty, material duty, but doesn't have any element of bhakti, what does he actually gain? Because he may gain some material name, fame in this lifetime or even the next lifetime. But you're still at risk of you're not going to, your eternal soul, and then after your time up in the heavenly planets is gone, is used up, you'll have to come down here again, start all over again, and you may get into bad association, and who knows, you can go to one of the hellish planets for a while. So better to give up the Swadharma and take to the service of Hari. That's the idea. And nothing is lost. And so Krishna will explain to Arjuna that even if he does take up the Ashtanga Yoga practice, which is bhakti, he teaches it in the context of bhakti. He's not saying you'll develop some mystic power. That's not the goal of it. But as I mentioned in 20 to 23, you're meditating on the super soul within, waiting on Krishna within, and you'll become pure enough, and you'll be in samadhi and absorbed in the Lord, and you'll have this dive into this ocean of happiness, of service, basically. That's the goal, and liberation then is the foregone conclusion. So the purport is that so then he divides humanity into these different parts, and basically it's the same thing. Lord Chaitanya has a similar division. Who can actually find peace in this world? Who can find peace? Now, so Krishna explained. There cannot be any happiness without peace. Vyaya kama nyaksarvan purang charadi nikspraha nirmamon rahankara sashanti madigachati. Who can really attain shanti? Shanti comes from eradicating our material desires, the various kamas. Vyaya kama purang charadi nikspraha. Having no sense of separate proprietorship, but understanding everything belongs to God. And not having this false ego of separation based on the body. This is and Lord Chaitanya says the same thing. He has four categories there. It says Krishna Bhakta, Nishkama, Ata Eva Shanta. Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami, Sakali Ashanta. So he has these 4 different categories. The Bhaktas, the devotees of Krishna or Vishnu. The Bhukti Kamis, those who are very much absorbed in trying to enjoy material pleasures. Vast majority of people, especially in Kali Yuga. But then you have a few who are mukti kamis. They realize that it doesn't make any sense to just try to enjoy in this world and then come back and suffer birth, old age, disease, and death again. We've already done that 1,000,000 times. Plus the threefold miseries. Miseries by the devas. There's an overlap. Here we have incredible weather things going on. Every day you hear about there's a hurricane blew up, really serious one. Now they have no lights in Puerto Rico, and the fires up north, because of the drought, everything's so dry. So you say, oh, this is Adi Daivik. Yeah, it's Adi Daivik, but it also, what about all, what about pouring out all these greenhouse gases? Doesn't that the scientists say, yeah, that's causing it. So it's Adi Daivik, but it's also Adi Bhautik. And then Adi Atmik, and ultimately, and then all of this, especially the young kids. I mean, when I was a young kid, I was very aware of what was going on in the world. The fear of nuclear war in the 50s and 60s, it was very prominent, I was growing up. And that affected how my mentality, And I became a peacenik, I was demonstrating against the war all the time, like that. But now, it's 60 years later, 50 years later, and still, kids grow up and they say, what's the point? What's the point? There's not going to be even a world for me to live in. There'll be these vast storms and, glaciers are melting, In other words, they know about that. It's a very depressing time, difficult time. So, the logical thing is to try to get out of it altogether. In other words, make a plan where you become Krishna conscious and your next birth is in a different planet. Goloka Vrindavan. Why not? We're promised that it's possible. It's on us to become strict and to follow carefully, you know, and chant. So that's where there's real hope. There's no real hope for anything material. It's Maya's trick that, you know, what is that? Nate bedu svartikadimi vishnam durashaya. Ashaya means to hope, to aspire. So those who don't know that Vishnu or Krishna is the real goal of life, this is spoken by Prahlad Maharaj. Nate bidu, who's they? He said they don't. He's in the previous verse. Those who have taken a vow to try to enjoy materialistic life. Their senses are out of control. Adanta gobhi vishatam tamisram. And then this immortal phrase, punak punas charvita charvananam. You know what it means, Arjun? Punak punak, again and again. Charvita, chewing the chewed. Trying to enjoy the same pleasure again and again in different ways. You know, isn't that a definition of madness? Trying to achieve enjoyment by doing the same thing again and again and then being miserable. So he says those who are enmeshed in all of this crazy material aspiration, they don't know that the real aspiration, the hope, our goal is Vishnu, is God, it's Krishna, re-establishing that relationship, which is never broken, but it can be forgotten. That's the problem, we've forgotten it. Natevadu svartikatim, your real goal in life is Vishnu. And so what do they have as a goal? Durashaya bahirartha manana. Bahirartha means external goals. Accumulating this, establishing this relationship, breaking that one, getting this position. That's all bahirartha manana. Which you're hoping that you can achieve it. And maybe you'll achieve part of it, but it'll be taken away. In other words, it's hope against hope. Andaya tandaya, you're blind leading the blind. And you're encouraged in all this by your teachers, your parents, you know, which are also ignorant, and your teachers and your priests, whatever, you know. In other words, you're really in trouble because from every direction you're getting encouraged in this impossible. And everybody, the teachers and the followers and the cheaters and the cheated, they all stay bound up tightly by the three modes of material nature. So what's the hope? You know, one has to bathe oneself in the foot dust of the realized soul, the Guru. One has to find someone who he seems to be in this world but is really beyond this world, and who knows the science and personifies it and can teach us. And that's Srila Prabhupada. He's still with us in his books. You open his book. I consider the class a success as soon as I read the first purport here. You know, I'm just reading to you. I'm trying to repeat what Prabhupada has given. And so that is the only hope in this world. The only hope in this world is that we can get out of it, you know, and take as many as possible with us. That's really the mission of Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya considers, he says, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sikali Ashanta. Who is not peaceful? The devotees can be peaceful. They have no personal desire. You know, they don't want to try to enjoy this at all. Their only desire is to please Krishna and Krishna's devotees and to go back home and take as many as possible. So then you have the Mukti Kamis. Those who are Bhukti Kamis, how can they be peaceful? You know, trying to enjoy this material world, never being satisfied. The multi-billionaires, you know, are they really happy? Are they, you know, blissful? They don't look so blissful to me. Give me like a new bhakta who's just joined and is chanting Hare Krishna. They look blissful. So, the Mukti Kamis, they also can't be peaceful because it's still a personal desire. I want to be free of all miseries. Let me, you know, I want to get out of birth, old age, disease, and death. The heck with anyone else. Prahlad Maharaj says that. They go off to the lone forest. They get far away from people. I don't want to be distracted, you know. I have to meditate on the absolute and merge, you know. But it's very, even if they may achieve, a few may achieve that, it's unnatural. The soul, we have form, we have spiritual form, activities and desires, and all that is denied by those who want to just merge into the absolute. So that Mukti Kamis, they're also not peaceful. Even if they may rise up, they come back down again because it's too boring up there. And so then what do you got? The Siddhi Kamis, the yogis who get distracted. They may practice this Ashtanga Yoga, but along with it comes the powers, you know. You can live a long, long time. You can walk on, you become lighter than the lightest, walk on water, you know. You can control people's minds. You can come to America and convince people you're God, you know, and before you know it, you have $1 million. It's very tempting. If you're not a devotee of Krishna, then the yogic powers, and there's so many examples. Devasa Muni, Vishwamitra Muni. You know what Devasa means? For a long time, I thought it meant that his clothes are far away. In other words, that he's naked. That's not what it means. Devasa means very, very difficult to live with. He's such a proud, arrogant yogi that if you don't defer to him, then he'll cast a curse on you or something, He's a great yogi, but he has none of the qualities of a bhakta. Humble, friendly, kind. Where are all those qualities? So the yoga itself can make you arrogant. So therefore, be a bhakta. You really be peaceful, and with that peace you can also be happy. How can there be any happiness without peace? So imagine just being so fortunate that you've learned how to tap into that unlimited reservoir of pleasure in your own heart. Krishna's there, And then what do you need? Just look at the six Goswamis. That three of them were extraordinarily wealthy. Rupa, Sanatan, and Raghunath Das. And they gave it up as tuchavad, insignificant. And Raghunath became amongst the six Goswamis, he was the most extreme in the matter of renunciation. And so from being millionaires or even billionaires today, they came down to be as poor as you can possibly be. They had no home, they practically had no clothes, and they hardly ate, and they hardly slept. So even the ordinary things in life that you do, at least I got a comfortable apartment, I can think. No, different tree every night. They didn't even have their own tree. So what did they have? Gopi, Bhava, Halika, Lola, Magno, Mahur. They were the wealthiest of all because they were relishing the highest levels of prema bhakti. At every moment, tasting this exquisite pleasure of serving Krishna in the mood of the gopis. And that's what they taught in their books, And so we offer all our obeisance to them. So that's what we should really aspire for. Is that this is the essence. No, I'll have to end here soon. In the second canto, near the beginning, there's a verse describing, there's several verses, it's like a laundry list. It says, if you want to have good health, worship Surya, the sun god. If you want to get a good wife, worship Uma. Strong senses, worship Indra. There's a whole list there of different gods and goddesses you worship. But then at the end it says, Akama savakama va moksha kama hudada di ti vena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. That whether you are free of all material desires, like the impersonalist, can become free of material desires, or you're full of all material desires, or you want moksha. In other words, those three levels. Kama, moksha kama, dada di, if you're really intelligent, tivrena bhakti yogena, with intense devotional service. This is an important thing. Not just superficial dabbling. Tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. You should worship the Supreme Person with intense devotional service. And that's your best bet. And in that purport, Prabhupada quotes from Jiva Goswami in his Sandarbha. I haven't been able to locate it exactly, but he has a wonderful phrase, and then we'll end here. He says, this is the whole essential purpose and principle of bhakti. Bhajaniya padma purusha sukha matra swasukatvam, which means this. Bhajaniya means worshipable. Padma purusha, the Supreme Person. Worshipping the Supreme Person. Bhajaniya padma purusha sukha matra. Only for the happiness of that supremely worshipable person, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, do you find your own happiness. Swasukha tvam. In other words, the pure devotee, he finds all his happiness in pleasing the Lord. You see? And then, of course, in our usual thing, in the our conditioned state, we say, "Oh, what about me? What about my happiness?" But the point is that we're part and parcel of Krishna. And so when we find ourselves, this can only take when you develop love for Krishna, which is perfectly natural when you actually are serving Him and meditating on Him. He draws your heart. Then, and just think of it, even in this world, isn't it true that a mother will find pleasure in when the baby is happy. Baby is healthy, well fed, and happy, and gives it one of those half smiles, you know, without the teeth. That makes the mother's day, isn't it? That's all they need. The mother's ready to run out into the traffic and save the baby, you know, because it's completely selfless. That's the closest thing we have on the material plane. But imagine if that person you're loving, you know, and Krishna also takes the form of a baby, you know, to draw that love. And there's always this maternal anxiety of Mother Yashoda. Oh, is Krishna safe? He's walking barefoot in the forest. No, he's going to step on something, you know. Yeah, he's going to eat dirt, you know, something get in there. So there's that anxiety, but because it's Krishna, that she's floating along in an ocean of prema, of love. So that's the essence of it, to find one's satisfaction in the satisfaction of Krishna. And how to satisfy Krishna most? By becoming his devotee and making others his devotees. You know, that Krishna says that pleases him the most. If our service to him is to bring others to him. And that's the mood of the gopis. Radharani, she says at the end of the, Lord Chaitanya writes in her mood, you know, he's taken on that role, that if Krishna wants to be with some other gopi, you know, then that's fine with me. I'll go and take that gopi and take her hand and bring her to Krishna. And I'll find my happiness there. Not that I'll be envious, you know, and plan in so many ways that they can't meet. No, I'll you know, help. So that's complete selflessness. And and there's no end to that. That's an eternal platform because it's completely on the spiritual platform, no degradation. So we should help. And Krishna will describe here, as he's ending up, that finally, don't worry, Arjun. You know, you just keep our friendship going. You know, you're at the highest platform of yoga. And then he launches into the 7th chapter. And Prabhupada explained middle 6 chapters, beginning with the 7th chapter, is the essence of the whole Bhagavad Gita. So in a few days, we're going to begin the 7th chapter. Okay, it's time to get ready for the Artik, and we have to adjourn. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Bol. Thank you. This has been a huge increase in attendance.